Most livestock farmers would love to earn $100,000 a year from their animals, but what would it actually take to get there? Do you just need 50 sheep, 100 goats, a few dozen cows? Even if you have the animals, how much land do you actually need? How much capital do you have to risk up front? Could an average person realistically build a six-figure livestock operation from scratch? Today, we're breaking down the hard math for sheep, goats, and cattle to see exactly what it takes to hit that $100,000 mark. And fair warning, the number of animals is only the beginning. Once you factor in land costs and asset scale, the reality looks wildly different than what you see on social media. Before we look at the animals, let's look at the math. A six-figure income sounds massive, but it's easier to target when you chop it into bite-sized pieces. To make $100,000 a year, your farm needs to bring in $8,333 per month, $1,923 per week, or roughly $274 per day. Now, livestock farming doesn't pay you a steady bi-weekly salary. You might have months with zero income, followed by a single payday worth tens of thousands of dollars. But over 365 days, our daily benchmark remains exactly the same, $274 a day. So, how many animals do you need on the ground to generate that $274 every single day? Let's start with one of the most popular choices for small to mid-sized acreage: sheep. Sheep are incredibly attractive to new farmers. They require less land than cattle, multiply quickly, and give you multiple revenue streams, from lamb meat and breeding stock to wool. Let's assume a highly optimized, well-managed sheep farm earns a net profit of $200 per breeding ewe each year after direct expenses. Now, a quick reality check. A $200 net profit per head is on the high end. It requires excellent pasture management and access to premium local markets. But using that as our benchmark, clearing $100,000 in annual profit means you need 500 breeding ewes. Keep in mind that 500 is just your breeding females. Once you add rams, replacement lambs, and market lambs waiting for sale, you'll easily be managing over 700 animals during peak season. To sustain that flock, using a standard moderate stocking rate of 5 sheep per acre on quality pasture, you need 100 acres of land. If pasture land in your area averages $2,000 an acre, that's $200,000 tied up in land alone. Add in the sheep themselves, at roughly $300 per quality breeding ewe, and you're looking at another $150,000 in livestock investment. Suddenly, making $274 a day means managing a 700-head biological machine on $350,000 worth of land and livestock assets. If sheep require that much scale, could goats provide a faster, cheaper path to the exact same goal? Goats are exploding in popularity worldwide. They eat the brush and rough vegetation that cattle and sheep ignore. They have an incredible reproductive rate, and the market demand for goat meat is exceptionally strong. If you look at the raw spreadsheets, the math for a meat goat operation looks identical to sheep. If you net a similar $200 per breeding doe, you still need 500 breeding does, 100 acres of land, and roughly $350,000 invested in capital to clear $100,000. But this is where the spreadsheets lie, because running goats is a completely different game in reality. First, goats are notorious escape artists. While your sheep will stay behind standard fencing, your goat investment will walk right off the property unless you spend significantly more on heavy-duty, high tensile woven wire fencing. They are also highly susceptible to internal parasites and predators, meaning your management labor is much more intense. However, goats give you one massive biological advantage over almost any other livestock: reproductive speed. Twins are the baseline, and triplets are incredibly common. Because their herd numbers explode so rapidly, you can grow your asset base out of your own pocket much faster than you can with sheep. So, yes, goats can hit that $274 a day target, but you trade lower forage costs for much higher infrastructure costs and intense daily management. What if you want to skip the small ruminants entirely? Let's talk about the king of livestock, cattle. For most people, cows are the ultimate dream for making a living off the land. And on paper, they seem like the easiest shortcut to six figures, because individual animals are worth so much more money. You don't need hundreds of tiny animals. You just need a few big ones, right? Let's look at a standard cow-calf operation. If we assume a well-managed herd earns an average net profit of $500 per breeding cow per year, you only need 200 breeding cows to hit your $100,000 goal. Compared to 500 sheep or 500 goats, 200 cows sounds like an absolute breeze. But this lower animal count hides a massive capital trap. Let's talk about asset costs. If you are buying premium, bred commercial cows during a standard market cycle, they can easily cost $2,500 to $4,000 a head, depending on your region and the cattle cycle. At a peak average of $4,000 per cow, a herd of 200 breeding females represents a staggering $800,000 investment just for the animals. And that's before you buy a single bull or trailer. Then there's the land. A cow isn't a sheep. It eats a massive amount of volume. Assuming a moderate stocking rate of 1 cow per 3 acres on high-quality pasture, your 200 cows need 600 acres of land. Let that sink in. 600 acres. At that same baseline of $2,000 an acre, you need $1.2 million worth of land. When you look at the master scoreboard side by side, the picture changes completely. Cattle require fewer animals to manage, but they require 6 times more land and over 5 times more upfront capital than sheep or goats to make the exact same dollar. The lesson here is simple. The animal with the highest price tag per head is rarely the easiest or cheapest path to a 6-figure income. If you started from scratch today, which livestock could get you to $100,000 fastest? Your choice depends entirely on your constraints: land, capital, and time. If land is your bottleneck, sheep and goats are the undisputed winners. You can build a highly dense, high-income business on a fraction of the space it takes to run a traditional cattle ranch. If upfront cash is your bottleneck, small ruminants win again. Buying your first 10 ewes or does is financially realistic. Buying your first 10 bred cows can wipe out a savings account instantly. If you want maximum growth speed, goats take the crown because their multiple birth biology allows you to naturally compound your herd size without reinvesting outside cash every year. Cattle only become the fastest path if you already inherit or have cheap access to massive tracts of land and heavy capital. In that specific scenario, well-established cattle markets allow you to move high-value assets efficiently. It is a serious commercial business operation requiring hundreds of animals and substantial assets, not a casual backyard hobby. But here is the final ultimate twist. The numbers we looked at today only cover the land and the animals. We haven't even touched the hidden operating costs that keep a farm alive: fencing, infrastructure, and complex water systems. Tractors, trailers, and diesel fuel, winter, feed storage, and veterinary care, and the cost of your own daily labor. When you stack those expenses on top, building that $100,000 income engine from scratch requires an even deeper look at setup capital, which is exactly what we are doing in our next video. We are going to calculate the exact dollar amount it takes to build a livestock infrastructure from the ground up, so you know exactly what to expect before you buy your first animal. Drop a comment below. If you had to start today, would you choose sheep, goats, or cattle? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our upcoming cost to build breakdown, and we'll see you on the next one.